Hey everyone, Douglas Blair Roberts here, the Super Beta 400 and the Brown Skin Human, coming back at you with another movie review series. And this is the intro to both parts of my Power Ranger movie reviews. The first part would be the original two Power Rangers movie, the 1995 Power Rangers movie and the Turbo movie from 1997. Then a review and rant on the 2017 reboot and my thought, and then in that same video I'll also give my thoughts on the future of the Power Rangers franchise. I wanted to split them up. I was gonna do them in one video like I did with the Mortal Kombat movie series, but I decided to split them up because I wanted to use both the We Can and the What I'm Made Of song. The only way to do that was to split them up, was to quote unquote split them up. This is the intro portion. Like I've said in plenty of videos, these are some of my all-time favorite movies. The first Power Rangers film is probably the best, followed by Turbo, which is the best and worst movie ever. Then you have the worst Power Rangers movie, Power Rangers 2017, but it's still a pretty good movie. The last 30 plus minutes saved that film. The last 30 plus minutes saved that film. And there were also several other new features I did like about that film, and I have more appreciation for that film now than I did when it was out in 2017. 2017. So that's Mighty Morphin. So this is the intro portion to this video. In this video right here, there will be no the Power Rangers movies will not play in the background because there's way too much copyrighted music in these. And when I set my account up for monetization, when I finally get the right number of subscribers and stuff, yeah, I wanna set this up for monetization. If I and in order to do that, I can't have any copyrighted music what's in the I can't have any copyrighted music in the intros. This was the issue with my previous one, my narration version. I had copyrighted music in that, so I can't set it up for monetization when my account becomes available for monetization. So that's why I have this version right here. So with that being said, you don't want to hear the rest of the music. Turn. I mean. So with that being said, let's get this music started right now. time for my review of the very first Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie from 1995 and 95, which to this day, this is widely considered the greatest Power Rangers movie. When it was released to a mixed to negative reception. But I consider this to be one of the best, to be one of the greatest '90s films and one of the best superhero action films of all time. I think it's like I said, I think it's up there. It's in my opinion, it's up there with the big budget superhero action movies of today. In my opinion, this movie right here, along with its sequel Turbo, were a precursor to the big budget superhero movies of today, and the big budget MCU movies of today look vastly similar to this. This was the Avengers, Justice League, and Dragon Ball evolution of the quote unquote 90s, of the quote unquote 90s, 90s. This film right here is just awesome. Words can't describe how awesome this film was. Just got done finished watching it couple of hours, several minutes ago. This and the sequel several minutes ago for this awesome review series right here. And this film, the storyline, costume, special effects. Yes, instead of one of the main things I like about this film, instead of dubbing English actors over Japanese footage, no, this film has something I've always wanted for Power Rangers. This is one of the main things I like about every Power Ranger movie. Is that when it comes to putting Power Rangers on the big screen on the movies, these movies, instead of reusing Japanese footage, these movies have their own budget, their own special effects, and their own costume designs. The costume designs was like a cross between the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever film, and the Japanese anime and manga adaptations, the Guyver movies, Guyver 1, and the much superior sequel, Guyver 2, Dark Hero. That's what their costumes remind me of. Remind me that these badass costumes still hold up today, with Tommy, in my opinion, Tommy and Adam having the best costumes, followed by the bad guys, of course. Then I love the special effects. Yes, I love those 90s special effects, which I gotta put to, just like with Mortal Kombat Annihilation, gotta take the nostalgia goggles off and admit how outdated those effects are, but they're still awesome. Several years later, they look like a cross between they look like a cross between the PlayStation, the Nintendo 64, and the Beast Wars Canadian cartoon from the 90s. That's what the special effects in this movie remind me of. And I love those dated effects, and love the storyline. Especially I like how this storyline features the Power Rangers losing their power and having to go through a short ordeal to regain their power and use it to destroy Ivan Ooze, the main antagonist of this film, for a long time. Before I continue with what I like about this film, let me talk about what I didn't like about this film. The only things I didn't like about this film is something I missed back when I saw this in 1995. And that was, when I saw this back in 95, I thought this was a prequel to the short-lived Alien Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Alien Power Rangers miniseries, and of course the Zeo series, which will come right after this. The Zeo series come right after this. When I saw this as a kid back in 95, that's what I thought this was a prequel to. Turns out this was an alternate sequel. This was an alternate what if prequel to the season 3 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because there was one character, there was anthropomorphic pig character named Mordid, who was in this film replacing Squat, Babu, Scorpina, and the Skull guy from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers television series. That's one thing I just missed. The much younger me missed when I saw this for the first time, and then I didn't see this movie for like up until about I didn't see this movie again up until like 2009. Then I also watched the Nostalgia Critics review of this movie, which I thought his review was terrible because he edits and makes the film look worse than it really was, and the film is actually apart. There are a couple of inconsistencies and problems here and there, but for the most part, this film is still good, and it's still held up. It's still held up after all of these years. After all these years of the film, when I got to watch it again in the mid to late 2010s, the film was even better, and the film is still awesome. The film is still awesome after watching it after rewatching again for this video review right here. Next, I love the soundtrack. Love the soundtrack. Love the soundtrack. You have the late Phil Hartman's Good Times or Good Vibes, Good Times, which plays in the intro, the opening rollerblade scene. You have They Might Be Giants surround sound. They Might Be Giants surround sound. You have this other band from the 70s that plays this song called Action Boy Now, Action Girl Now, something like that. Which during the Tengu fight scene, then you have the very awesome epic remix Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the more serious opera movie version, which is awesome. Then you have the late Eddie Van Halen. I'm gonna talk about him and pay tribute to him later in this video. The late Eddie Van Halen's Dreams song, which plays in the outro, and you also have the ever popular Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting. That song appears here, and so does I think the remix appears here too. And of course, the most iconic song, the 90s, the 90s shampoo blend, the trouble song. We're in trouble. Something's come along and bust our bubble. This 90s female duo team is disbanded and no longer a what's his name. Because I would love to see this band perform this song now. And I would love to see a modern day update remix of this awesome song right here. So yeah, one of the best soundtracks of all time. Everything about this film was awesome. It's everything a Power Rangers movie should be, and everything the 2017 reboot was it. There was never a dull moment in this film. My favorite scenes, besides the final battle, the opening rollerblade and skydiving scene with Phil Hartman's Good Times playing in the background. The Power Rangers versus Ivan Ooze's Putty Patrol. First they fight as humans. They fight at first. Tommy, Rocky, Adam, Karen, Ashley, Aisha Campbell, and Amy Jo Johnson, Kimberly and David Yost, Billy all fight as humans. Then they transform to their Power Rangers with the movie Power Ranger theme playing in the background. Then this is where the film really begins. Ivan Ooze, who left his minions there to visit his old nemesis Zordon and Alpha Q in the control center. Badly messed up wrecked the control center and badly messed up Alpha Q. Then badly messed up Zordon, leaving him a slowly decaying, dying husk the dying Hus, and since Zordon was injured or incapacitated, that means loss of the powers, and the Power Rangers lose their powers and have to challenge to the planet Thetas, and Meet don't see and become the Power Rangers the ninja action figures. I remember these, the ninja Yeti, something like that, and become and they have to go through an ordeal battling some anthropomorphic rhinos for who are guarding the sacred power to obtain the sacred power and regain their powers, travel back to Earth, kill Ivan Ooze, and save Zordon. Save Zordon. The whole storyline, besides what I just mentioned, was Ivan Ooze, a intergalactic planetary being who terrorized the Earth in ancient times, was sealed up by Zordon. Was sealed up with Zordon. Now he is free thanks to Rita, Repulsa, and Lord Zed. Lord Zed, Lord Zed, Lord Zed. They free him and they form a partnership after Ivan Ooze fails to kill the Power Rangers. Fails to kill the Power Rangers. He takes complete leadership. He takes complete leadership and shrinks Lord Zed and Rita Repulsa and traps them in a crystal ball and threatens Mordin and Goldar with the same fate if they don't pledge their allegiance. Goldar and Mordin cowardly turn against their masters, Lord Zed and Rita, who dare to not betray them by coming saying, "We never liked those guys anyway," and they become his servants. Meanwhile, Ivan Ooze creates the Tengu Bird Warriors to go to the planet Phaedos where the Power Rangers are, where their human forms are, and kill them. This is where the action girl now, fight scene happens with the Power Rangers as human fight the Tengu warriors, and then they meet Dulcia, who at first thinks they're intruders until they reveal that Zordon sent them and that Ivan Ooze is free, and then she gives them their new costumes, powers, where she commonly gives Adam a frog, and they battle the anthropomorphic rhino warriors for the rhino or pig warriors, I can't remember, for the great power, and use that power to take the fight to Ivan Ooze, who constructed some giant robots called anthropomorphicons to terrorize the city, the city. In a subplot, he also uses his ooze to hypnotize the parents to make them his slaves, and then when he has no use for him, he sends them all walking off a cliff to their doom. It's up to Fred Kelman and Bulk and Skull to save them, and together by operating a cliff they managed to save the adults and break them free of their control, saving them while the Power Rangers take the fight to Ivan Ooze's anthropomorphicons and defeat them. But Ivan Ooze then morphs himself with the anthropomorphicons, and the Power Rangers then combine their Zords together to form this film's version of the Megazord and do battle with Ivan Ooze. And get their butts kicked, and Ivan Ooze then flies into space. The Power Rangers fly after him, and the Power Rangers notice they can't beat Ivan Ooze in a fair fight, so they call their emergency tactic. Rocky comes up with his Billy comes up with the emergency tactic of luring Ivan Ooze near the great comet. I keep forgetting what the comet was called, and they wrestle with Ivan Ooze, and Aisha activates hilariously activates their secret weapon and special move, which was kneeing Ivan Ooze in the nuts and causing him to fly all the way into the asteroid, killing him. And they fly, and then you have My next favorite scene, one of the greatest endings to a superhero movie, with Eddie Van Halen's Dreams playing in the background and the Power Rangers name flashing in the sky, and Bulk and Skull, who also helped save the world, say, Power Rangers, what? No, Bulk and Skull, Power Rangers, Bulk and Skull. With before that scene of Bulk and Skull, they were talking about how they saved the world. They were like, we could smell evil like a bad breath, but evil could definitely use a mint. They were saying something like that, and then the Power Rangers like, can you believe those guys? And then this is where the scene happened, where the flashes of light, where the fireworks made spelled the Power Rangers name in the sky, and Bulk and Skull like, Power Rangers, no, Bulk and Skull, Bulk and Skull, Bulk and Skull, and Bulk and Skull, and Bulk and Skull. There were a lot of funny moments, such as Ivan Ooze, when he was zapping Zordon, he was mentioning a bunch of things he missed. The Great Plague, the Spanish Inquisition, and finally the funniest one, the Brady Bunch reunion. The Brady Bunch reunion. The guy portraying Ivan Ooze, he was probably the MVP of actors in this film. And speaking of actors in this film, the guy portraying the in suit actor for Goldar in this film, I think his name is Kerry Wilson. Hold on, what's his name? Um, Kerry Casey. Yeah, he's no longer with us, passing away in 2017. And I mentioned Eddie Van Halen, the late Eddie Van Halen. One of the saddest and most tragic things happened. I was just watching this movie, and then when I logged onto Facebook, hours earlier, I saw an article saying that Eddie Van Halen, legendary rock guitarist Eddie Van Halen, had passed away. I was like, please no. 2020 was already bad enough, man. This added on to it. Eddie Van Halen passing away. I can't remember what his passing was, but it was something to do with drugs and basically old age. The guy was like 65 years old, and I was just in shock. I was just watching this movie and logged on to Facebook to hear this guy passed away. I've been a huge fan of him since this movie, and the 2000 sports comedy wrestling movie Ready to Rumble, where another along with Dreams, he has another cool song called Running with the Devil that appears in that film. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan of Eddie Van Halen, one of my all-time favorite rock guitarists. It's sad to hear that he's no longer with us. And another legendary guy I wanted to meet. This is a shorter tribute. There'll be a much larger one in my tribute to the deceased people, which I've been meaning to get back to. But yeah, I can't believe he's no longer with us. And I was just watching this movie right here, man. I was just watching this movie right here. Yeah, this movie helped introduce a younger generation to Eddie Van Halen, because his song Dreams was used in this movie right here, right here, right here. Then right here. Um, um, yeah, so yeah, this was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. Of course, all the cast from the Power Rangers, from the season 3 of the Power Rangers return. From seasons two returns. Jason David Frank as Tommy, Steve Cardenas as Rocky, Johnny Bunyach, I think that's his name, Bosch as Adam Park, Karen Ashley, who I often confuse her with Nakia Burnrose, portrays Aisha Campbell, and David Yost. David Yost returns as Billy. Billy and Amy Jo Johnson returns as Kimberly, and Paul Shear and I keep forgetting Skull's name. Both of their actors return. And Barbara Goodison reprises her role. Actually, Julia Cortez portrays the in-suit actor for Rita Repulsa in this film. Um, um, Nicholas Bell portrays Zordon. Gabrielle Fitzpatrick portrays Dulcia. Paul Freeman, that's the actor, he portrays Ivan Ooze. He was probably the MVP of actors. Paul Scheer portrays Farkas Baltmeyer, and Jason Navy portrays Eugene Skovovich, and yeah, so yeah, that's the entire cast. That's the entire Power Ranger that's the entire Power Ranger cast for this film, and this film was one of the biggest films of '95. I remember it being back in 1995. It has a 37% on the Rotten Tomato meter, which is about what a Power Rangers movie would get, 30 to 40%. And the film was a box office success with a budget of 15 million, taking in 66.4 million dollars at the box office. So yeah, and I think this is the highest grossing. Power Rangers Power Rangers Power Rangers movie. But yeah, Power Rangers movie. But like I said, to this day, still one of the greatest superhero movies ever. And this was the Avengers MCU and Justice League and Dragon Ball Evolution of the 90s. All of those films look like and took elements from this films, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. So yeah, this was my review of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Turbo. And it's probably, if I had to choose, probably the greatest Power Rangers film, the greatest Power Rangers film. There's never, unlike the reboot, there's never a dull moment in this film. Well, this has been my review of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, is coming next. Hey everybody, it's time for the part 2 webcam portion of my review of Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, the Power Rangers Turbo movie, which of course is a sequel to the 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, and of course a sequel and follow up to the Power Rangers television series, television series, and a precursor to the Turbo Power Rangers television series. This is my review rant, because as much as I love this film, I consider this, just like Mortal Kombat Annihilation, one of the best and worst film of all times, but to this day still one of my all-time favorite movies. When I saw this movie for the first time, I can't remember if I saw this movie back in '97 or not. The trailers, the actors, actresses, and the soundtrack are definitely familiar. But I can't remember actually seeing this movie, because when this movie came out, yeah, I was starting to get out of Power Rangers. I would later return to Power Rangers in the mid 2000s, when I would become interested in live action adaptations again. But this was the big. This was '97. This was '97 through 2004. So this is when Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, and of course Nickelodeon were at their peak between these years. So around this time, I started getting out of live action, and more into animation, more into quote unquote animation, which is why I don't have the same negative outlook on this film that a lot of Power Rangers fans, have. When it comes to this movie right here, I thought the storyline, screenplay, cast of characters, actors and actresses, and soundtrack and fight choreography were on point. These were the best parts of the film and the saving graces for this movie right here. However, the biggest problem with this movie is the same problem with Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This movie wanted to be bigger, better, and badder than its prequel, the first Mighty Morphin Power Rangers film. But this film did not have nearly the budget or the money to be as big, And this film right here, the people making this film were so were so pretentious and greedy that they foolishly chose to play this in theaters. This should not have been in theaters. This should have been a major television broadcasting straight to video. This should not have been. The first Power Rangers film looked like a Power Rangers movie. It had its own special effects instead of reused Japanese footage. Its own special effects, costume design instead of reused Japanese sets, and a much larger budget than the television series, and as such, it felt bigger and epic, and it still does to this day, several years later. This movie right here looks like a 1970s, 80s, and 2000s made for TV film with the costumes looking like something from the superhero shows from the Batman Adam West Batman television shows and the superhero shows of the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, early quote unquote 90s, and that is the biggest problem, and that is the biggest issue with this movie right here, and that's why when it was released, while the first one had a mixed to negative reception, this had a predominantly negative reception. The only thing people being praised was the cast of actors and actresses who did a phenomenal job and carried this thing. By the way, you don't hear any you don't hear any you don't hear the movie in the background because the movie has way too much copyrighted music, and when I do set my account up for monetization, I want to set this up for monetization. So once again, just like with the first one, the movie will not play in the background despite how much I wanted to because how awesome it was. Well, anyway, let me continuing. Returning from the previous film are Jason David Frank as the main character, Tommy. Um, Steve Cardenas briefly returns as Rocky. Johnny Banyach returns as Adam Green. I think that's his name, Adam Parker Green. I think whatever his name is. And Nakia Bunrise returns as Tanya Sloan. I think that's her name. Tanya Sloan and and what was the pink Power Ranger's name? The new pink Power Ranger. Um oh yeah, Katherine Sutherland returns. Um, who joined the cast in the Zeo series, replacing Kimberly returns as Catherine Hillard. Her quote unquote character, and Amy Jo Johnson, Kimberly herself, and Austin St. John also return in this movie. However, they're not Power Rangers in this film. Controversially, Rocky Steve Cardenas, he wanted out of Power Rangers, so his character, much to the disappointment of everyone, um, he um, he gets injured in the first half of the film, and sits out until the end. It doesn't appear until the end of the movie, and is replaced by a young kid, Blake Blake Foster, who of course portrays Josh Justin Stewart, Justin Stewart, one of the most hated Power Rangers of all time. I thought Blake Foster was cool. I thought Blake Foster was cool, but I would have rather had Rocky back. I would have rather had Rocky back. But what can you do? Steve Cardenas wanted out. You can see it from his point of view. Okay, dude, he has been doing Power Rangers since about 93, 94. So that's 3 to 4 years of Power Rangers of Power Rangers. I can see where this would get stale, and later in the television series, the other cast members, would leave the series and move on to other things. Would move on to other things. So move on to other things. Another thing I like about this film is just like the first one, this film has an awesome soundtrack. This film has an awesome soundtrack with all the music done by a guy named Ron Wasserman. Ron Wasserman. One of the interesting things about this soundtrack is that unlike other films and the first Power Rangers movie, all the music you hear is its own created music. Instead of using licensed music like the first one did, this uses its own series of songs. This uses its own series of songs. You have so many awesome songs, including the very epic Power Rangers Turbo theme, Power Rangers Turbo theme, the movie Shift into Turbo theme, which I can't remember. Did that play in the television series too? Then you had the you also had the memorable. Then you had the awesome Hope for the world. Then the what I like to call the love boat scene, the big fight on the boat where you have the rock and roll song. You have the Turbo Titan song, which plays at the end, and then you have the Turbo Time, which also plays during the final battle. So you had a lot of awesome songs. You had a lot of awesome songs, and screenplay wise, I actually think this film is better than the first one because the screenplay is actually oh it's actually hard to remember. It's hard to remember something about the main bad guy, Warlord Divatox, Warlord Empress, Warlord and Empress Divatox wants to awaken the monster Malagor, and marry him for power and prestige. And in order to do this, in order to wake him, she must offer up a sacrifice. And at first, she kidnaps Bulkin's skull, but they're rejected, and Divatox comically scrambles their brains, causing them to act all goofy. Then you have Kimberly and Jason. She kidnaps them and puts them prisoner, and later hypnotizes them to fight the Rangers. Meanwhile, I guess the Rangers go looking for them. The Rangers go looking for them. And finally find them. And they all clash in a final battle against the hypnotized and evil Jason, Kimberly, Emperor Divatox men before Emperor Divatox tosses one of her minions, Rygor, into the thing, and thus the monster Malagor is awakened, and the Power Rangers summon their new turbo power, which they got midway earlier in the film, and battle this monster, and defeat this monster by slicing it slicing him in half, or cutting him into pieces, causing him to explode, and then in the final scene, Austin St. John Jason takes Rocky's place in the big karate match with Tommy and Adam, and defeat with Turbo Titan playing in the background. The film ends there. Just like with the first Power Rangers film, this movie, in my opinion, has the best ending to a superhero fantasy film. One of the best endings to a superhero fantasy film I've ever seen. Even better than the big budget box office Avengers movies, big Avengers and MCU movies of the modern era, of today, of quote unquote today. And this film, just like the first one, this was the Avengers, Dragon Ball, and Justice League DCEU of the 90s, of the quote unquote 90s, and the MCU films of today look like big budget versions of this film, more so than comic books. They look like big budget versions of these movies instead of actual comic book movies. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. So so um yeah. What else about this scene? Oh yes, my favorite scenes. Favorite scenes. The final battle in Emperor Divatox's lair. Divatox's lair with the Power Rangers versus Evo, Kimberly, and Jason and Divatox's men, followed by the big Megazord battle against Malagor, then the big karate match at the end, the big karate match at the end, followed by the intro, the intro with Rocky fighting with Rocky with Rocky where he gets injured, and the popular Love Boat scene I was talking about, where the Power Rangers board a boat to the what you call it, and when they set up the boat, a song called "Hope for the World" plays. Then later, when some underwater turtle like monsters with spiked shells come onto the ships. The Power Rangers fight them to with Ron Wasserman's rock and roll playing in the background, and this is where Nakia Bunrose, after the fight is over, says her character Tanya says, "This sure ain't the Love Boat," and that's why I call it the Love Boat scene. And the scene before that, where they get the brand new turbo power, they get the cool cars, they get the cool cars, and the Power Rangers turbo theme plays for the first time in the background, followed by every other scene. There was also various funny moments in this scene. The first one involving Bulk and Skull, who in the previous series were trying to become police officers, and this movie continues from that plot. And Lieutenant Stone, their superior, he appears in this film. In one scene, he's lecturing them. But they're Bulk is paying attention, but Skull isn't. Is having a hard time having ketchup come out of his hot dog, and he accidentally drops it and steps on it, and the ketchup squirts onto Lieutenant Stone, and Lieutenant Stone asks his Bulk for a napkin, and Bulk says, "Don't worry, sir, I already have one." It takes the only napkin that Lieutenant Stone wanted Bulk to give him to clean himself up. Then later in the film, when Bulk and Skull get captured, Emperor Divatox, I mentioned her rejecting him, the monster Malagor rejecting him. So she weirdly, the bad guys scramble their brains, causing them to act more weird and dumber than usual, with them having awkward accents, saying stuff like, "Who is this Bulk and Skull? Who is this Bulk and Skull?" And later, when when Jason says something about munchies, Bulk thinks he's talking about snacks and says munchies. Then makes a bunch of weird cartoonish sound effects. It's just hilarious. And then later in the film, there's a scene involving a fly where Emperor Divatox is giving her signature cliche evil speeches, and a fly keeps flying by, interrupting her. Then the fly finally sits on her leg, and then she sticks her tongue out like a frog and catches the fly and eats it, and then it makes a weird sound when she chews it and digests it. So yeah, there were a lot of funny lines and funny moments. Everyone from this film, for the most part, I can't remember if Larry Go. I think Larry Go is still alive. I'm getting him confused with Wildor from the Masters of the Universe film. I think he's still alive. Everyone from this film is still alive except for Ernie of the juice. I think the owner of the juice bar, who of course he passed away in late 2008, December of 2008. I'm only gonna mention him briefly pay tribute to him, because in this series he's not a main character. He's just a cameo appearance here. But he was part of the Power Rangers family too. And to this day, every time I watch Power Rangers and see him on screen and see that he's not here, I always get sad. It's the same with Trent. It's the same with Thuai Thurn Tree from the first original Power Rangers cast, who's also known with us, as she passed away in a car crash in 2000 and in 2001. The Time Force series was dedicated to her and her memory. So yeah, but still to this day, and also filming one of my all-time favorite films and the best and worst film at the same time. So with that being said, you don't want to hear the rest. This has been the Power Ranger movie reviews. You don't want to hear the rest of the video. You don't hear the rest of the music. Turn the video off right now. Yeah. Everyone have a good night. Bye.